Nikki Austin, absent. Rich Dupree,
Present.
Eric Echdel, Carrie Ellison is present. Teresa Keen,
Present.
Dylan McGuire. Cheryl McGuire, absent. Bill Vosberg. Tim Wolf is absent.
All right, we have quorum. We are in session. I'd entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved. Second.
A motion by Teresa and a second by Terry by voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, now we get to recognize our high school student. Let's jump right into that.
All right, I'm gonna have Alex and Ms. Davis come up. So Alex couldn't be here at the last time that we met to recognize all the other students, but luckily he can be here tonight. So come on over here. There's kind of a camera this way that they look at us for anybody who's tuning in live. Right? So Alex is not only a great student, but just a great person too. So one of the bad parts of the end of the year is there's only one more month left to recognize students, and we had a few different nominations, but when I put them out there, Alex was the one that was pretty overwhelmingly the choice. So, and very, very well deserved. And the person that first nominated him was Miss Davis, so I'll let her talk about him a little bit.
So I've known Alex for 4 years. First met him in backstage in theater, and he was wonderful then as a freshman, and he's just grown as a student and as a person. And I've never had Alex in a class. However, I could not have done backstage this year, especially. And when we were doing Shrek the year of COVID, I couldn't have done it without Alex. Like he runs our backstage. I don't know, Jenny too. I don't know what we're gonna do without him. But he said he's not leaving too far, so we can corral him back in. Yeah, we can hire him to come back and to help out. So also, Alex is an amazing student. I mean, he's carried honor roll, high honor roll his entire high school career. He just won a welding competition at Black Hawk Technical College with a few other students. He's just exemplary, and I couldn't be more happy that you got this award.
So let me talk about that quickly because I want to brag about that. 15 different teams from our area, the 2022 Junkyard Wars, if you ever seen the show that's on, I think, Discovery or something like that. So they gave you 3 hours, right? And they said, you need to make some kind of statue of your mascot, right? And our mascot is like, what is our mascot, right? And so they made a wedge of cheese and 2 mice on it out of scraps, right? Gears and wire brushes and all kinds of stuff. It looks amazing. So they won the trophy. They won. They beat all the other teams, and we took it home. So, and Alex was part of that.
Yeah. So I'm just thrilled that you got this. I think I nominated him last year, and then I just have to give a little. So I nominated him. I don't know, probably in April or May, and he nominated me for something too, like the same month, and we didn't know we were each doing that. So he surprised me on stage at one of our performances. So I'm getting him back a little bit. So anyway, congratulations.
Thank you.
There's a plaque.
Hi, Alex. I'm Rich. I'm with the board. It's just great to hear these amazing things about you. And I can't thank you enough for all the hard work that you put in. It sounds like you're doing all kinds of different things in the school, arts, medals, and all kinds of stuff, and really making amazing things possible for all of the great shows that go on in the PAC. So thank you so very much for all of the hard work that you put in there. It made a large difference to everybody participating and to our community to get to enjoy those shows. So thank you so much. I've got a certificate for you to remember the evening and a gift card to Barnes & Noble to pick up some books.
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Ms. Boshar, do you need a photo? Okay. All right. We're going to move on to consent items. Do any board members wish to remove a consent item for individual consideration? Hearing none, read them into the record. We're approving the minutes from the Board of Education for May 9th, 22 Approval of receipts and expenditures for April of '22. Approval of professional staff resignations. Randy Rubikowitz, high school Spanish. Mike Flanagan, middle school 8th grade English. Phil Chambers, high school special education. Approval of professional staff hirings. Joanne Lancaster, middle school ELL teacher. And Griffin Kister, Northside Elementary 3rd grade. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Teresa and a second by Dylan. Or was that Eric? Came from that direction.
That's right.
A second by Eric. By voice vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. We have no public comment this evening. Old business, no old business. New business, we're gonna have an update on the North Side project. How are we doing at North Side?
Pretty good. Should I go stand at the same spot?
Wherever you like, yeah.
Watching.
I'll just reintroduce myself. I think I see a new face, Eric. Nice to meet you. I'm Tony Buss. I'm project manager from CG Smith. On our team is also Cody Engel, who's a local graduate here. He spent last summer at Northside Elementary, and he'll be there again this summer. And then Steve McNett, who's actually also local, will be one of our foremen on site this summer. Steve worked on the park side. So between me and Cody and Steve, that's kind of our team from CG Schmidt. I'll just do a recap quick of what the referendum budget is, or what the referendum is for Northside, and then what happened last summer and what's going to happen this summer. So the main thing is the new HVAC system for the whole school. That'll be basically replaced this year, along with the roof replacement. The other big piece, which was last summer, was the ADA restrooms that we redid. So all that finished up last summer, and so we did some abatement last summer and last winter break, and the exterior siding and drain tile work was finished up last summer. So also in addition to the HVAC system, new fire protection, fire alarm is going to get redone, and plumbing piping is going to get redone this year. So that's kind of just a rough view of the scope. I'll kind of go over what we've been doing since last summer, and then kind of get into what the next few weeks look like, and then do a quick update on budget. So, like I said, last summer, the biggest thing was probably the ADA restrooms, and we went pretty well. There were some things that popped up, but nothing out of the ordinary for remodel. We got away relatively unscathed with the different supply chain issues with the industry, things of that nature. So, feel fortunate there. We did have one, I guess I'll get to that when I get to financials, but this last fall after we left, so we spent a lot of time designing the MEP, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems. Last summer was dedicated towards really quickly turning around and getting the bathrooms done. In the fall, we got to plan for this upcoming summer work. So we had our design meetings, we kind of hashed through all that stuff and released all the HVAC equipment by around Christmas last year, so that we had everything in time for the summer work, and everything's planning to be delivered on time. So no surprises that I'm aware of. Over the Christmas, we spent some time to have the abatement company come in and get the abatement fittings out from above ceilings. So that's huge for the summer's work, because there's so much stuff happening this summer. We took opportunities over Christmas break and spring break to knock out some stuff. And asbestos abatement for fittings was one of them. So that was huge to get in there, get containment done, clean up, and that just is like a week saved on this summer's work. Then on the spring break, we took the opportunity to remove the ceiling tiles. So I just want to say thanks to all the staff and the teachers and folks that had to deal with that. I know it's not ideal. Hopefully the sound was manageable, but it really helped us get a jump start on things for this summer, and also was visually planning purposes of the stuff that's hitting above ceiling. We were able to plan more and be more proactive for upcoming stuff this summer. So I want to thank you for that. We also took the time to do gym lighting and fire protection last spring break, just a few weeks ago. So what that does is kind of gets most of our work in the gym kind of done, so that we can stage desks and things like that on the gym flooring throughout the summer. We also replaced the air handling unit coil inside of the gym unit. I'm getting a little technical here. And we redid the breaching in the mechanical room. So, and then since spring break, we've had some people in the school, whether they've been noticed or not. We do have HVAC contractors been working second shift, doing a lot of work above ceilings, like I said, measuring pipes and duct work and getting everything ready to have prefabbed at their shop over these next few weeks and ready for this summer. So that he finished up a couple weeks ago. The fire protection crew started last week and they're there again this week putting branch lines, and I'll call it branch lines, just the fire protection sprinkler heads that you see in the ceilings usually. Just the piping inside the classrooms is all we're kind of getting a jump start on right now. So that's happening, second shift kind of actually right now as we speak. And then the other big thing that I just want to thank the staff for was allowing us to get in there on Fridays. So early release with the kids are out at 1:09. I've been scheduling subcontractor meetings at 1:30 in the conference room, and the schools let us kind of camp out there and that pre-planning piece and looking above ceilings and all that stuff. So that's kind of what we've been up to. We're about ready to embark on the first big weekend here. So Thursday the 2nd, I believe, is when the kids get out at noon. Teachers are still in the school Thursday afternoon and Friday. So we're going to take Thursday afternoon and Friday to kind of get a jump start on some stuff that's not too intrusive. Protecting bookshelves, helping maintenance kind of get some student desks and things out of the classrooms into the gym. There's some work in the library to get prepped for some work up in the mechanical mezzanine. So we'll be doing that Thursday and Friday, and then we'll really start on Saturday hard doing ceiling demo. So the teachers will be out Friday at 5. We'll get in there Saturday morning, bring a bigger crew, start with ceiling demo. And then on Monday morning is the true kickoff to the summer work when we got a crew of 16 HVAC folks coming and just tearing out equipment, tearing out duct work, and it's going to be crazy. So a good crazy a lot. I mean, I think everything's planned well, and I think we're going to be off to a good start. So. Any questions on that, on schedule before I move on to budget?
Are you feeling pretty good about being done?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, pre-planning in the spring really kind of helped us get ready for it. I mean, it's remodeling work, so you never know, something could come up and throw a wrench in the plans, but I think we're sitting pretty decent.
Received everything that could be supply chain related.
Yeah, so of course not everything's here and it's on site, but like the major stuff, the HVAC equipment was ordered back in Christmas. So some of the stuff is sitting at North American Mechanical's maintenance area, which is up in DeForest. Some of the smaller pieces, some of the bigger equipment that comes directly from the manufacturer has been ordered and made. It's just got a scheduled delivery date for the second week in June. So I talked to the project manager again this morning about that. No issues on the horizon. Those are confirmed delivery dates, but you never feel great until it's actually there. So, but it's best as can be expected right now. Talking about budget again. So last summer, like I said, we were pretty unscathed with the supply chain issues. There was one set of sinks that came in a little bit late, but it was no big deal. We were able to work with the school. Other than that, the only major thing that we identified last summer was roof pricing, roof insulation, and membrane pricing. If you've been following anything to do with the construction industry, which I wouldn't expect that you do, but roof insulation, and it was a big one. One of the hardest materials to get, specifically polyiso insulation. If you remember a few years ago, there was a storm down in Texas. That's where the most of this material is made, and that kind of jump-started some of the issues with the supply chain with those types of materials. And then you throw COVID on top of that. I was trying to buy out the contract for roofing last summer, and it was one of the first, trades that said manufacturers aren't even guaranteeing pricing. They won't sign contracts. They won't guarantee pricing. Essentially, pricing is whatever, when it hits the truck, when it's being delivered to your site is what the pricing is for insulation. That's how wild the insulation and roofing has been. So luckily, that's our biggest hiccup right now. We did get 3 loads of insulation just a week ago, sitting outside on the parking lot up in Northside. So it was this really gambling act last summer. Do do we order it now and get it in February, you know, and need a place to store it for 4 months? Or do I wait and hopefully the prices go down and maybe release the order around Christmas just in time to have it for summer? Glad we just ordered it because supply chain it's been taking longer to get and the pricing has not stopped and there's more increases coming in early June. So I do have a projection on what that is gonna be, but I'm not gonna know until all the materials are delivered. The good news is we did kind of revamp the scope for the roofing a little bit. I won't say revamped it. There was a pricing alternate to kind of save some of the insulation on the existing roofs instead of just ripping everything off and tossing it out. So we were able to potentially get we did recognize some savings that's gonna help offset this material issue. So ultimately, we're still in pretty good shape with the budget and hopefully even have some savings to return even after this roofing thing is hammered out and if things go well this summer. I think that's pretty much it. Like I said, the pre-planning for this spring was helpful in trying to get out ahead of some things that usually come up during construction and get a plan for those and get a cost accrued on all that kind of stuff and figure it out. So I guess that's really my update. Are there any questions on budget or anything else to do with the project?
Appreciate your continued work and diligence on the project and bringing it in on budget and on time.
Yep.
Always been very satisfied with all the work the guys are doing, so.
Good. Yeah, like I said, I think there haven't been too many issues with the stuff that went in place last summer, so I think the staff's been happy as far as I know anyway, so that's always great to hear. Thank you. All right.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks.
Have a great night.
Yep, you too.
Okay. Next item is approval of the 22 through 23 fee schedule. The proposed fee schedule is attached to board docs. You guys want to walk us through the changes? I think it was just one change in there, right?
Yeah, there was just one change, I think, that was made with class dues from $5 to $2. Ron indicated when we talked about it. Jeremy's here too, though.
Yeah, there was one of the classes that they weren't sure why, the history of why it was $5, and they kept on ending up with more money and then trying to find ways to use it, so they just knocked it down to $2 like the rest of the classes.
So the only change is a reduction for class dues from $5 to $2.
So then will it just be one, like the high school, will there just be one column for high school?
Looks that way with 9 through 11 already being $2.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
9 through 12, $2, yeah.
I'd entertain a motion if somebody would like to make it.
So moved.
Eric will second.
Thank you, Eric. Just have to hear your voice a couple more times and then I'll get it.
All right.
All right, so the motion is to approve the 22 through 23 fee schedule. Any additional comments or discussion?
I just have a question, Rich.
Yes, sir.
The hockey fee, I don't understand that.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What is the hockey, why is the
He doesn't
hockey
understand
fee
the
what it
hockey
is?
fee.
A lot of it is the ice time and some of the equipment, it's just significantly more expensive than other sports. And from talking to people at Maya, it's not out of line from what other co-ops are paying. And they're used to paying that kind of money when they come up through the club too. So yeah, I mean, it looks way different than $60, right, per sport, but we don't own our own rink, so I think ice time is the large part of that.
I'm not questioning it, I
Yeah.
just didn't know what it was for.
Yeah, it's shocking to most people when they see that.
Good question. Any others? Okay, by voice vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. We're on to approval of the 22 through 23 breakfast, lunch, and milk prices. Also attached to board docs. I think there was a uniform 10-cent increase to all prices. Is that correct? And we haven't changed, I'm trying to remember what Ron said. This hasn't changed in years and years.
I think he commented on the reduce rate, also increased it by 10, and that hadn't been changed in many, many years.
I have a question. Are these the prices that we also use for St. Victor's, or do they set their own prices
Ooh, good question.
since we do lunch with them?
I would assume it's the same. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I'd hate to venture a guess. I don't know, and certainly Todd and I
That's
haven't
fine.
been connected to that conversation, so.
I can ask Ron when he returns.
Will that
curious.
continue next year then?
I would assume so. I haven't heard anything different that would suggest that they're gonna make a change to that plan. So I think it's worked well based on what I've heard.
Okay, thank you.
Entertain a motion if somebody would like to make it.
A second.
Motion by Phil, second by Teresa. The motion is to approve the 22 through 23 breakfast, lunch, and milk prices as recommended by Ron Olson, Business Administrator. Any additional comments or questions? By voice vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next item is the annual approval of activity accounts, also attached to board docs. And there are additions and deletions happen every year, right? Things change a little bit.
Yeah, Sandy Grabowski and I meet and talk about some of the accounts that are out there and haven't been used for years and trying to close them, get them cleaned up. But then, like you said, there's clubs and activities that are starting every year when they make sense, so then they need to open up something to either fundraise or fund what they're doing.
Any additional comments or discussions on the activity accounts? Entertain a motion if somebody'd like to make it.
So moved.
Second.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm still looking. I have a question. On the high school ones, all of the sports are listed, but that's not true for middle school? Is there, do we know? I know Brian's not here, but
I know the high school, different sports teams have their own fundraising.
so maybe they just don't. Okay,
Maybe they don't
that's
need-
fair. I just was curious.
Yeah, they might not need that for
Mhm.
whether they take a coach bus or need new
Yeah, yeah.
uniforms or something like that.
Okay. So they just don't have funds. That makes sense. Thanks.
Who is the second, Donna? Dylan? Motion by Terry, second by Dylan. Any additional questions or discussion? By voice vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. And now we're on to our district PLC update. Todd's gonna walk us through what PLC's been up to. And where we're headed.
Into the, I feel like I'm tucked away in the corner here, so I can move over to Ron's spot, that might be a better spot. What's that?
I said, nobody puts baby in the corner.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
Right.
Thought I heard that.
We'll use that, although it's kind of an outline of the information that will be shared. So with the light agenda tonight, and as we close out the school year, I thought it made sense to provide a short update on the PLC work that we've done throughout the year with staff. We don't have any data, student achievement data that we'll share tonight. The plan for that will be, we're still organizing it, and still collecting a little bit as we finish the school year. We'll bring that back probably late summer, after we get FIG in the mix and have an opportunity to look at the data collectively as a group with our administrative team and go through that and come back probably sometime in August and share kind of end of the year data. And then what's the plan, final plan moving into the 23 school year. So tonight's just gonna be an overview of what the work was with our PLC work this year. And I'll include some next steps within that process. So if you wanna just kind of follow per request of Phil, I thought I would start with what is PLCs, because he always says, we use all these acronyms, and, we don't always do the best job of clarifying what they mean and how they're a part of our work. So I thought would provide a little bit of background, and Eric's new too, so I thought it made sense to kind of orient everybody around what PLCs are, because they are the work that our teachers are doing across the district K-12, and everybody's engaged in this work. So what is it? Well, it's a process that our teachers use as they work collaboratively together to ensure that all kids are learning. And it's really focused on 3 pillars. It's focused on learning, focused on collaborative culture amongst our teams, and then the third one is focused on results, looking at data and using that information to drive the instructional decisions and provide support for students. So that's kind of what it is. And then there's 4 basic questions that all of our teachers across the district, no matter what area they're in, use to plan and work from as they work collaboratively within their team. So it's really basic. It's what do we want kids to learn? How will we know that they've learned it? Monitoring it. And then what will we do if they haven't learned it? What will we do if they already know it? And how do we extend the learning for those students? So the questions are basic, the ideas are basic, but the work is very complex as teachers are trying to get down to the student level and identifying what each kid's needs are and what they need to do to support the learning. So real basic ideas, but the work is hard. And our teachers have done a great job this year of really digging in to the work. So that's just a quick little background on what PLCs are. So I hope that meets
I'm good.
you're good? Good. Are you good? Eric's good?
I got it, thank you.
All right,
Clarifying.
we're good. All right, so probably around this time last year, our administrative team met and we were looking at some of our student achievement data from years past, and obviously looking at some of those trends, some of those not all positive. And then we were also considering the impact on COVID and the gaps in learning that students were gonna have as we were hopeful that we would get back into a normal school year this year. And we really recommitted to our PLC work. We felt like the best way to attack the holes and gaps that our students were gonna have and some of the student achievement concerns we had were getting back to doing our PLC work and really having that sustained effort and commitment to that work. And really committing to 3 things that would help us fully implement that PLC model. And that was common formative assessments, which is basically using a common assessment to monitor the essential learning for each course subject area. And then implementing a system like Mastery Connect to warehouse the data, organize the data so teams could get together, look at it, and then make instructional decisions. And then the last area is having them build in additional time. So we call it GRT, another acronym, guaranteed recovery time, where teams in their pacing guides, in their plan, would dedicate time, sometimes daily, sometimes weekly, sometimes within a 2-week, 3-week cycle, where kids would get additional time and support for those essential learning targets for that course. So those were the 3 big areas that we mapped out and paced for the school year, and design our plan and our action steps around those 3 things, and making sure that every teacher, every team, were going to make those a priority and implement those into their practice. And it was a commitment K-12 that we really stuck together on all year long with the resources and support that we provided for our staff as they really started to, what we wanted them to do is just practice these things and get used to this for full implementation for next fall. And these were just some of the things some of the specifics, but really what we did is we took each trimester and we started with trimester 1 and said, okay, we're gonna ask you to do this work 1 time through for first try, where they had to develop common assessment around a learning target from their course, get together with their team, look at the data, and then make instructional decisions based on that data and make sure they built in additional time and support for that 1 target. For trimester 2, we increased it to 2 times. For trimester 3, this last try, we wanted our teams to be able to go through that cycle which is this cycle that has weird numbers and letters on it. I'm not sure why it ended that way in the presentation, but
Mine doesn't.
is it in your board docs?
Yeah, it's in here.
Okay, so it's correct in the board docs.
Yeah,
I'm
that's- yeah.
not sure why it's showing that. But essentially that shows you the loop that we wanted teachers to go through with the planning, the instruction, the assessing, and then identifying who needs support and providing it. So by the end of our school year, teams should have gone through this loop 3 times, essentially probably once every 3 to 4 weeks. And that really was setting us up for what we'll be doing on a regular basis next fall and how we use our common assessments, how we'll input the data into Mastery Connect, and then we'll provide that additional support for students with levels of support, starting with the GRT, which is really just what teachers can do within their own homeroom without any extra support to provide support for students before kids might go to the flex time tier 2 and receive even extra time. So it's just that first level of support that we wanted students to have if they needed it, because all kids obviously don't learn it at the same time, and some need extra time and support before they're able to get it. Some need multiple times of support before they get it. So that was essentially the work that we did this year. And it was across K-12.
I just
And
checked today and every core academic team at the high school completed that goal.
Yep. So across the board, I mean, these guys have been great. Our building principals each have leadership teams that they're working with to make sure that this work is being done, and that teams have the support they need, because just like students, some teams are farther ahead in this work and don't need as much support. Some teams are doing this cycle, that teaching and assessing cycle, weekly in 2 subject areas. And it's just part of their practice, where they're constantly looking at what's the big targets for the week, how are we gonna assess it, when are we gonna sit down as a team and look at the data together, and then what are we gonna do next week during this block of time we've scheduled to help support students. And we have some teams that are farther ahead, and we don't have any real data to share tonight, but talking to some principals, I know Joe was talking to one today, that some of those teams that are farther ahead, the data looks really good. That we know if this work is done right and it's done the way that we want it to be done, we're gonna see results. Because it's targeted, it's specific to what kids need, and kids are getting feedback on the learning targets. So it's good work, but we've got some good early indications of data that are coming back that it's showing good gains. So that's a positive. Just wanted to highlight just kind of the celebrations from the year, the year in implementing this. I think just having it be a K-12 focus. We've been doing PLC work for a while, right? And I think to recommit to it and have it be a common mission across the district where everybody knows. You could walk into a building and I think you could ask any teacher and say, what's your district's goals? And I think for the first time they could give them to you and say, this is our goal this year, this is our priority. Probably message it so much it was annoying to them. But it was a K-12 focus that was a lot of work and effort by buildings to implement. But like Jeremy said, we made sure that teams were accomplishing the goals that we committed to.
And I'd say a huge thanks to Todd, for leading that too, because for the first time, at least this year, I feel we put the machine into motion. For many years, we were developing pieces and parts of PLC and getting there, but this year we put it all together. And teachers saw that 4-question cycle and they learn by doing, which is the conversations that they're having that I haven't really seen them have before, because they actually have data and experiences to have conversations about, hey, this many kids got this target, this many didn't, what are we going to do? That is
So, I think with that common mission, we focused, not that we didn't do this before, but I think there was a more focused effort around all students having access to those essentials, those standards, those learning targets for core classes. And I know Joe has done a lot of work with his special ed team and helping support them and making a little bit of a transition too in making sure kids were part of core classes and really having the same access as all of our other students. So Joe, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about any of the work with your special ed.
Yeah, just quickly, and Jeremy just referenced it, I think we've been going through this PLC work for 6+ years now. And I think many times when we've talked about it from a philosophical standpoint, I think people were saying what they thought we wanted to hear in terms of, we believe that all kids can learn. And the reality is we couldn't have expected them to truly buy into that until there was some proof that that was a meaningful statement and the systems were in place. And what we've done to this point is we've created the systems, we've built the pieces of the framework that allow us to actually serve kids in a meaningful way. And so we've narrowed our focus, we've identified what needs to be done, we've identified some of those prerequisite skills, and we can build scaffolding to help all kids be successful. And the biggest focus for us this year is making sure that the vast majority of our kids with special needs are served within the grade level classroom, grade level instruction. I think we have a long history of working really hard to help kids, and many times we were pulling them out and trying to individualize their support. And we did that because we cared about those kids and we wanted to do what we thought was best. But the reality is that often resulted in creating gaps in terms of their achievement. And we recognize that if we're going to do this the right way, we need to be in the regulated classroom working with the regular ed teachers to provide the necessary instruction. So it's been a big shift, but it's a challenge that our staff has taken on. And we had a 80 and 80 challenge. So basically, we had a campaign this year that basically asked for 80% of our special ed kids to be served in the regular ed environment at least 80% of the time. Previously, we're at about 63, and we did hit the 80 mark. And we're going to conduct another audit at the beginning of next year to make sure that we're on pace for that, because we believe that if we have kids in those classrooms and we provide the right support, that we're going to see good things. So we know it's a targeted group that we need to pay attention to. It's one of those areas that's going to make a big difference in our school report cards if we do this right. And so I'm proud of the work our team has done to make some changes.
Yeah, I think one thing that happened during COVID and programming for kids, and this isn't just related to special ed, I think it's related to, I wrote down a note for our 3 elementary buildings. We did a lot just to get by, right, in providing services to kids. And that collaboration amongst special ed teachers and teachers, the collaboration among 3 elementary buildings, there wasn't much because you were all just functioning within your own classroom to make it work for that period of time. And this year it was really getting back to collaboration amongst all of our teachers, collaboration amongst the 3 elementary buildings. And then leading to some vertical alignment here, which I'll talk about. But I think that was some things that are celebrations and getting back to the work that we kind of lost during COVID. Like, I brought people together, I think a couple weeks ago, and they hadn't seen each other in like 2 years in person, right? They've done some virtual stuff and stuff through Zoom and Google Meets, but like in-person meeting again and really getting back to some of that work. So that's a big celebration. One of the things we learned in bullet 2 there, identification of power standards. Through this process this year, as we were having teams implement those priority areas, 1, first try, 2 tries, we still were teaching too much stuff. And I think teams learned that pretty quickly, that they couldn't go through that cycle on everything they teach. There's too many standards in their subject area to address even in a school year. And we'd already kind of narrowed that list to mastery standards and a shorter list, but we needed to even get more focused and more narrow with the work. So I'd say over the last probably 2 months, that's been work across the district that we've had teams starting to narrow their list even more of like the must-haves. What do kids need to have in order to be successful as they move into the next grade, the next course, need to be successful on the assessments that we're using, or the ACT, the state assessments, or what skills do they need that might help them be successful in other content areas. And really, teams narrowed that list down to what we call power standards, where it's prioritized list of standards and learning targets that they felt like they could work through our teaching and assessing loop and that process through where it wasn't overwhelming the system. And then once we were able to do that, over the last 3 weeks, we've had vertical alignment conversations. So we vertically aligned K-5, we vertically aligned 6-8, we vertically aligned 9-11. And then we brought those transitional years 5-6 together, 8 and 9. And we basically went through a process of providing clarity of what's the progression of skills that students need to have in ELA and math. So we focused on ELA and math in that work and making sure that by next year, through Mastery Connect, our curriculum maps will be reflective of vertical alignment and that progression of skills from K up through 12. And that was exciting work because that was work that we had tried a few years ago, probably before COVID.
6-7 years ago.
And it just, we weren't in a good place, I think, with some of our PLC work to really be able to do it the way we did. But
Probably
the,
weren't as clear with our targets.
Yeah.
We didn't understand them as well as we do now.
yep. So the conversations we had with 5, 6, and 8, 9, we've got some work to do because I think there were some things that were pretty clear when we talk about level of rigor and how things progress from 5 to 6, and then how does it progress eventually up to from 8 to 9. But this process of vertical alignment, the first step was just articulating those standards and learning targets. And then we'll bring those groups back together and we'll be able to look at like what the assessments look like and are they actually getting more rigorous as kids progress and they move through the grades. But that's been exciting work, is starting to get into those vertical conversations across the district.
We felt pretty good today when we looked at the agenda for the National PLC Institute, the next one in August. And one of their big breakout sessions was narrowing your focus. So we think we're doing the right
Yep.
work.
Yep. And then just setting up summer work. I mentioned Mastery Connect, curriculum maps. We had people kind of learn that system this year. The vertical alignment, we've told teams that list of power standards is going to be our curriculum maps next year. And on those curriculum maps will be their common assessments that they're going to use. And I'll show you an example here in a minute of kind of how we modeled that at the end of this year. And then teachers will create proficiency scales for each power standard. So basically, what does it mean to be proficient on that power standard? What does it look like for me to be proficient on those learning targets within that standard? And that just provides clarity. It's clarity for all stakeholders, clarity for parents, clarity for students, clarity for staff as they plan, which leads to the grading and reporting conversation that we'll be having. And how does that change some of our practices in that area? It guides assessments, it guides the instructional planning. Then really what it needs to get down to is the student level, so students can monitor their own growth. And they can really be connected to the learning and what are my goals, what do I need to learn for this course? Because that's where student engagement comes in, is just tell me what I need to learn, right? Like, tell me the 3 or 4 things that are most critical. I think our kids quickly sort through, does this count? Does this not count? And I think,
No matter what system we have.
yep. So I think for us to get to that level, it will help with the student engagement component. Unit planning, pacing around those power standards, that teaching and assessing cycle, how does that fit in to their trimester plan, year plan? And then we mentioned tiered support system. We mentioned the guaranteed recovery time. But Joe and I and elementary principals recently attended a workshop of how do we tweak some stuff with our RTI, our multi-tiered support system with, and I mentioned before, Flex. How do we use Flex? We have it now within our schedule, and that's one of the reasons we switched to trimesters. How are we using that time to provide additional support for kids within math and ELA? So it's just refining that work and really being more systematic with our systems that we have in place. So that's all work that we're digging into over the summer and will be part of our work as we enter the fall next year. And then I just wanted to provide a quick example of how Mastery Connect is being utilized in one area at the end of this year. So we gave a common assessment to all fifth graders across 3 elementary buildings. And this is just a piece of the data, but it has the learning targets on the left in math. And then you can see what percentage of our students are proficient on those targets, how many students are approaching, how many need support. Some are good, some are bad. I think what that allows us to do is give this information to 6th grade teachers and say, here's the power standards, here's the things that we wanted our 5th grade students to be able to know how to do. And a lot of them still need help with decimals to 100, right? So 6th grade teachers know with this data that they could start their school year and they're gonna probably need to build in extra support and time within their pacing to address probably 2 and 3 on that list, because before they can move on to the next steps in learning, kids really need to know these things. So it helps with placement and it helps with instructional planning. And it's something common that all of our 5th grade teams gave to all of their students. And we've never had this level of data before to give to 6th grade and say, here's some data that you can start using to plan over the summer because you're gonna know exactly where kids are at coming in for the fall. So just an example of how we think powerful the tool Mastery Connect can be in organizing the data and providing our teachers with some plans moving forward. How do I do on my time? 20 minutes? Questions?
So,
Joe, Jeremy, these guys are all available.
go ahead. First of all, I think it's a pretty complex system, so it's gonna take some shepherding, for the staff. And, along with new curriculum hitting in the fall, I think, right? And I think lastly, the vertical alignment piece, I think that needs to be front and center, in all your discussions.
Absolutely.
And so it's good to see that you've got the transitioning grade 5 to 6 and grade 8 to 9. I mean, it's really good stuff. I think the staff's really excited from curriculum committee meetings that I've been in, but it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's complex, but I think it's a good system.
And it's work that never ends. You're always refining and you're always, making adjustments. We've talked to our staff with some of the work from this spring with vertical alignment, selecting our power standards. We said this is an every year thing. We're always going to be looking at data because we might say some of these power standards aren't the right work. We might have to adjust a couple of them, or we might have to move some things around as you start looking at data and you look at multiple sets of data to plan for the next year. So this is work that we're always going to be doing and always going to be refining. And you have new staff, you have new curriculum. You're always, I think, going to be adjusting. But this is the framework, the work, and we're pretty excited about the work ahead of us.
I mean, to me, it's like any process or system. If it's a behemoth and complex, are you spending more of your time just managing the system than actually utilizing it for the results that you want?
Yep.
So I don't think that's the case, but
Yeah.
it'll need shepherding.
So it's good to see that there's some vertical alignment starting to be fleshed out. And I'm trying to recall 2016 when we started this. I thought there were individual building PLC goals, and every building had their own goals. And I don't think there was a common thread binding those together. It sounds like that's being built now. So
Yeah, I would say everybody was doing similar work. We'd all attended the same conference and institutes and came back, and I think each building, you're right, we're doing, the PLC process and going through the work and had their own goals. But I don't know if we were as connected K-12 across all 5 buildings.
specifically now pulling people together around the power standards and all that, right?
What you're saying, Rich, is very true. I mean, for the first time, I know Joe and Todd did some work before the school year started to try to put a structure together with some of our help, but we had district PLC goals of what we wanted to accomplish this year, and I believe every building jumped right on that and had those as well as part of their building goals. So yeah, we all work toward a common goal.
All of the work is aligned, and I don't know if that was always the case. Like, we were doing the work, but I'm not sure if it was aligned at all levels, classroom to building to district.
Great to hear. Phil kind of mentioned it, it's a big complex system, or can be a big complex system, so I had a couple questions about Mastery Connect. So this is our second year using it, or how many years into it?
This is our first.
First year
First year.
for the majority of our teachers and the teams. North Side, they were implementing before COVID, so this is, I think, 3 or 4, but some of that work looked different, obviously, the last couple of years. So they're probably in year 4. And so, yeah, go ahead.
So, I mean, I know that there's a natural resistance to change in any really form when you're bringing a new system in. It's one more thing you have to do, one more thing you have to track. How are you guys feeling about how the system's being embraced? Do people understand the value? Are they really getting on board? Or is there still some work to do to get past that resistance until?
I think the challenges we face with teams or teachers that are having a hard time maybe getting on board with it, because we do, right? You've got some that have embraced it and it's part of their practice, like I was saying. And I would say when I talk about teams that we're seeing some good data, it's probably some of your teams that one of the elementaries, North Side, that's farther along, because they see the impact of how they can use Mastery Connect.
See the value of it.
Yep.
That's helping.
The challenge we're facing in probably middle school, high school is multiple systems. So we've got Schoology, Mastery Connect, and Skyward. So now you've got 3 systems that some teachers are managing data and assessments and grading in. So we have to narrow that list, and we have to figure out how they're able to manage that.
So just speaking from high school, we have teams that we're at the point where they're asking and wondering, why do we need to do this at all, right? But then we have some other teams who were very high functioning teams that found a different way to do it. They were doing that exact work, and then they were asking, well, if I can do it over here, why do I have to do it in here? But in the end, we had that as part of the district goal, and everybody is using it. Now, I think there's probably a little bit of work still to show some of those teams that how valuable this tool is.
Right.
Similar to that snapshot, if right now we're all narrowed down to our power standards and what kids absolutely need to know to be successful at that next level and do well on the state assessments. So if we're doing that work now, and then if they can see this and see exactly how all their students across all their classes are doing, I think that will be helpful.
Okay.
And we're probably implementing, maybe a fourth of what Mastery Connect can do. Like, I think there's, we wanted people to get comfortable with the system, but there's a student portal side that allows students to get in and monitor their own growth. When we talk about curriculum maps, which will be new work for next year, that's where all of their curriculum will be housed with their assessments and hopefully some additional resources that's their warehouse, but it's also for their curriculum, but also for the data they're collecting. It's in one place. So there'll be some transitions that we need to make with some of our teams to get them fully into that system, because they're still managing a couple other systems, and change is hard, right, to get them to shift.
And honestly, and we have been honest with them about this, some of it is for us, right? There's an accountability measure for us to be able to watch and see how students are doing on all the power standards as well.
I mean, I would like to come back to you guys first trimester next year and say, here's where we're at with our power standards in at least ELA and math, and be able to share an update, from a 100,000-foot view, but give you guys that data check in as we're all focused on student achievement.
I don't know how the teams are made up or comprised, but, sometimes if you make the teams properly, you might bring enthusiasm to some that are less enthusiastic. Some might be mentors to others that are maybe further behind. I don't know if that's.
No, you're right on. We go ahead.
Oh, it's just that you're right. I think for many people, for all the reasons that were just mentioned, people are sometimes hesitant or resistant. They have a lot of things that they've done that they felt have been successful. I think what we're starting to see now, and Todd referenced a conversation I had earlier with one principal, is some very real success, and it's not just marginal gains, it's significant strides forward, like 20+ percentage points in terms of proficiency levels at grade levels for these teacher teams that are using these tools and doing it the right way. And all of our teachers want to be successful. Every single one of our teachers want to do a good job and help their kids. It's just different philosophies and different ways of looking at things. And I think what we're doing is starting to create some momentum around this. And when we have local exemplars where we can say, teachers you know, worked with kids that you know, and have had this kind of success, the issue is going to be trying to provide enough support and enough information, because they'll be begging for it at that point. And that's not an overstatement. We've heard that from other districts. Once they see that level of success, I think next year is going to be a huge year for us, because it'll be the first time that Mastery Connect is truly employed district-wide in a consistent manner. And if we do it the right way, we're going to see some pretty significant gains for our kids. And so we're extremely confident in the work that we're doing. We're confident that a greater percentage of our staff are going to embrace this. It's going to take time, because we're talking about adaptive change, and it's learned behavior. It's broadening their skills, it's growth, and that's hard for people. But I'm confident that we're gonna get them to where they need to be. So we're in good shape.
Quick question about, so within Mastery Connect, I'm just curious, inside that system, is there some type of, I would consider a system like this, it's taking in all of this data that you're trying to make actionable decisions about. It's a business intelligence system. Maybe this is an education intelligence system to convert it over to the educational world. So are those measures an easy ability to easily synthesize data into consumable information? Is that built into Mastery Connect? Does it provide thresholding maybe for automated interventions, or do the teachers have to go in and dig through the data for every instance and identify all of the individuals that may need a little bit of extra help? Or is it more of like a force multiplier? If they're putting the data in and they're putting the data into the system the way that we're asking them to, then they will suddenly have some assistance either from the system or from some other support staff or teaching partners, that it says, hey, we've got, a threshold was tripped and we need to apply some resources here. Does Mastery Connect do that for us, or is it really just sort of storing data and we're trying to synthesize it ourselves?
A little bit, I would say storing, but it provides a level of analysis within the system. So like for this, you can, the common assessment, you're able to item analysis, right? So you're able to look across 8 classrooms and say, which question on this common assessment did all of our students do poorly on? And then obviously your planning is around, okay, this group of students needs more support, but then it breaks it down by student, by target. So teachers look at that data. I don't think it's getting to the level of what you're asking for, where it like sets up an intervention system and automatically coordinates that.
Mm-hmm.
There's an analysis that needs to happen with teachers, but it's organized, I think, at the level that they're
It
able to.
provides a quick visual, right? Like teams go in, they look at it, okay, who's green, who's yellow, who's red. Based on those, we have some information about, was our instruction effective? If it was, if we have, say, 75% of the kids are in green and we have a few in yellow and a few in red, then we know how to respond. And I think one of the biggest differences in the way the system is set up is, rather than externalizing all of the help or the kids that need help, we're saying we own all of these kids, and we're building systems within our schedules in order to provide that support. That's essentially what GRT, or guaranteed recovery time, is. We're saying, if Phil's struggling in my class, I'm not sending Phil out right away to work with Todd. I'm saying, as a classroom teacher, Phil is my responsibility, Nikki's my responsibility, Eric's my responsibility. And so I'm gonna work with them in order to provide layers of that support, so that when he goes through that first time, we're guaranteeing that he has a great opportunity to learn the most critical information in my class. And so teachers are very comfortable working with data now. when they get into the system, it takes a little while to figure out how to develop the trackers and where to find things. But it's pretty comfortable and pretty user-friendly for them, and that level of analysis comes pretty quickly for the teams. And I think that's ultimately what we're looking for. Who's got it? Who doesn't got it? Those that don't got it, what are we gonna do for them in real time today, by kid, by target, to make sure that they get it? And it's that level of connected specificity that ensures that all of our kids are gonna be successful. We've never, ever done anything close to that in this district.
That's great to hear. That was actually my last question. Is how do we make this consumable for the stakeholders, for the parents, for the students? Red, yellow, green. How do they know where they are and whether they need to ask for help, or how we can quickly identify them? So if this will be the tool to give us a micro and macro view of how we're doing from the kid all the way up to the entire district. And this tool will produce that in a consumable fashion for us. I'm excited to see some of those outputs.
That green, yellow, red, 3, 2, 1, that work, I think, connects to the student portal side of it, where students and parents, we hope eventually as we roll this system out, will have access to the learning at that level, so they know exactly where their kids are at on the power standards and learning targets for that course that they're looking at. And over time, if the kid starts in red, you hope that eventually it turns to green, and that's all that matters. It's not averaging anything. It's start point, end point. The end point is where they're at with that learning target, and we hope to get them to green.
We have teachers that are now
Thresholds.
using the tool and standing up at staff meetings and saying, I have all my kids at green on this standard. That has never happened before. And people are having some of those critical conversations to learn that, hey, some of the things that we didn't previously think were possible actually are possible if we do this work the right way and if we narrow our focus appropriately. So it's very exciting.
All right. Thanks, Todd.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, informational items, sportsmanship. We have graduation coming up. Wrote it down. Day 29th, 1:30 to 3. And Phil and Terry? No, Nikki. I'm sorry. Phil and Nikki. are
Almost
gonna be
up
there
to
for
you.
us. No, still you. Anything from administration?
Not for me, I just got back in the mix. I've been out for a week, so I barely know what's going on at this point.
Our high school team's meeting tomorrow just to finalize the plans. Graduation practice coming up this Friday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. We're still gonna do the elementary graduation walkthrough that we took a little hiatus on for COVID. People are super excited. We have 114, I just looked, respondents right now.
Wow.
Out of the class that want to do it. And
That's
they're going.
awesome.
So we'll bus them to Parkside and Northside, and they will walk over, and St. Vic's as well. So it should be a really good time. And
Didn't that start out pretty slow, Jeremy, at first, wasn't it?
yeah, I think we will probably at 50 or 60, and now it's nearly the whole class that wants to go.
That's so
That's
cool.
great.
You know, it's not something so serious either. So we have many students who maybe came here later and didn't go to elementary school. Just join a school, have fun. Those kids will love you.
But they don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, they don't know. So it's a really cool thing. They wear their cap and gowns.
That's awesome.
Yeah, parents actually show up at the elementary school and watch, and it's pretty cool.
It's gonna be in the gym this year,
In the gym.
not outside. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I just can't predict the weather.
Yeah, no, I just making sure I know where to go.
One thing we might want to consider if we are able to build a high school someday is building an outdoor facility that specifically could house an event like that, an outdoor amphitheater that could be covered.
Last year when we had it, we lucked out. It was absolutely
was
beautiful.
beautiful.
It was,
Graduation day.
it was.
The day before on graduation practice, it was sleeting on us. So you just never know. Right? No, yeah.
Great.
Rich, I just have a cool thing.
You have a cool thing?
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead.
when my daughter was in 3rd grade at Parkside, they wrote letters to themselves, what their career goals were going to be, what they were gonna do when they, whatever, grew up. That letter showed up in the mail about a week ago. I couldn't believe
That's
it.
awesome.
it's all kudos.
Yeah.
I mean,
Blast from the past.
it's the neatest thing in the world, you know, their handwriting, their letter. And who were their two best friends or what they were going to do.
That's awesome.
Was it still pretty close to what she, I mean, she's a pretty focused
Changed a
girl,
little
so.
bit, you know, I mean, it was just the neatest thing. I mean,
That's cool.
if
Oh,
you're
that's
still, if it's still happening, it's just great. Marissa just got an absolute kick out of it. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that. It was just so neat.
No board correspondence, committee reports, anything from you, Eric?
Nope.
Dylan?
Nope.
Jerry?
The library board will be meeting in person, going back to in person this
All
week.
right. Excellent. Nikki?
We've got some kids going on to sectionals from the track meet that I just came
All
from,
right.
so yeah, it was pretty exciting, but no,
Excellent.
otherwise nothing.
Okay. Teresa?
Nothing.
Phil? Okay. Any agenda items for future discussion from board members? Anything from union liaisons? Okay. Nobody from the press here. At 8:06, I'd entertain one final motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Eric and a second by Teresa by voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.